Hello, viewers of iRadio. My name is Emmanuel Joseph Akile, and I'm the host of The Dawn Show, one of the flagship programs on iRadio. Today, we are pleased to be joined live in our studios by Christian Sedat, the ambassador of Germany to South Sudan. It's good to have you with us here. It's a pleasure, Ambassador. Welcome to iRadio.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, Ambassador, let's begin our conversation briefly. Let's talk about the German Unity Day. And I understand it's celebrated every year on October 3rd, which is a national day in Germany, and I understand it's a public holiday. So what does this day mean to Germans, Ambassador?
So on the 3rd of October, as you have said, it's our national day. It's the day of German unity. And we celebrate the German reunification this year for the 34th time. And so we will today celebrate with our partners from South Sudan. And I'm really honored to start the celebrations here on the airwaves of iRadio. And because I think it's fitting, we also have something to celebrate, and that is our recent cooperation between iRadio and the German embassy. And if you allow me to lay out a little...
Yes, let's dive into that. Let's a little bit talk about the cooperation. Explain to us more about that, Ambassador.
Yes, so iRadio reached out to the German embassy several months ago and pointed to several technical difficulties in the transmission throughout the country. Yes. And we have looked into it, and we provided support for two regions, the region of Avail and Yambio. And I think what is celebratory to announce today is that listeners in Yambio, due to this support of the German embassy, listeners of iRadio are back on. And so I want to say a special greeting to your listeners in Yambio and welcome back.
Yes, indeed. And what does this support really mean to the media industry in general in South Sudan, Ambassador?
Well, it means the access which iRadio is providing to information, and that is very important, and it's very important work which we are happy to support.
Yes, and we look forward to continue with this kind of support and the cooperation between iRadio and the German embassy. Now, Ambassador, you first visited the then Southern Sudan back in 2004, and that's before the independence of this country. What was your impression and experience back then compared to now, Ambassador?
Yes, well, that is really something which impressed me deeply, this trip which you mentioned in 2004. It was, as you, of course, still the wartime, and I went on a humanitarian mission to Old Fangak, Niamlel and Rumbek. And I had the opportunity to talk to so many South Sudanese to see and to learn about the hardship, but also what deeply impressed me and what has stayed with me, the resilience of the people. And so coming back here 1 year ago to South Sudan as German ambassador, of course it's a great honor, but it also means something personally to me, given this trip 20 years ago.
And Ambassador, I understand your country, Germany, is the second largest bilateral donor here in South Sudan. And I understand in July this year you participated in the inauguration of water supply system worth more than $2 million in Torrid of Eastern Equatoria State. What was your experience there?
Indeed, as you have said, Germany is the second largest bilateral donor in several aspects, also in the field of development cooperation. In Torrid, we provided through German finance and the execution of UNICEF 25 new water kiosks. We provided new water tanks, a whole supply system, and also we schooled via our agency GIZ water technicians to make sure that this water is drinkable. And the experience there was the warm welcome from the population, and to see, we visited several water kiosks, how this really makes a difference in everyday life for the citizens. We have done the same last year in Yambio, where our deputy ambassador and head of cooperation, Björn Niere, handed over a water supply system which we financed, and these things make a difference for the population.
All right. Ambassador, I would like also to talk a little bit about German support in the field of culture here in South Sudan, and especially looking at the Juba Film Festival. Let's talk about its importance.
Yes, that I'm grateful that you mentioned that, because this is something which is very important to the German embassy. We provide support for humanitarian needs, and maybe I can say something about that also after this. But we find it important in the German embassy to not limit our view to the problems only, to the needs only. These are there, they have to be addressed. But we also want to support the potential which South Sudan has to offer. For example, in the field of culture, the tradition of dances is something we support. And then, as you have mentioned, we are I think the long-standing supporter and principal donor of the Juba Film Festival. And just this year, to give you a very concrete example how this support can empower a young sector here in South Sudan. The winner of the Juba Film Festival, the South Sudanese film Village Beauty, has been invited to the Zanzibar International Film Festival together with 3 other South Sudanese films. And for us, this shows that via our support, we can play a role in, for example, bringing a really fine South Sudanese film to international attention. And I don't know whether you had the opportunity to watch the movie while it was screened at the film festival. It's a very fine and beautifully told story about the intricacies of young love and heartbreak, and maybe most importantly about the power of forgiveness. And we are proud that this South Sudanese film is now also in the international arena of filmmaking.
And since you earlier mentioned, would like to a little bit also talk about the humanitarian support that the German government is involved in South Sudan. Can you mention some of them?
Yes. So we have many challenges in South Sudan, as we all know. We at the moment, for example, something very urgent and acute, we look at the impact of flooding. And while it is clear that the prime responsibility to address these challenges is with the transitional government, we see our role as to contribute, to complement, and to support the efforts of the government. We cannot substitute them, but we of course it's our responsibility to play our part. And I can announce to you today, for example, on the question of flooding, Germany will provide new money to UN agency, to OCHA. We have prepared additional contribution close to $3 million, which will help to address questions like the impact of flooding.
It will be given to the UNHCR this year?
Given to OCHA, the agency, which is
this year.
This year, yes. We are just signing the contracts at the moment, so it is something to react to the urgent humanitarian needs which we see here in South Sudan, given the impact of the flooding.
Right. And since you were talking about the support of Germany, let's also understand earlier this year your foreign affairs minister visited South Sudan and met with President Salva Kiir, other leaders as well. And they discussed the implementation of the revitalized peace agreement, conflict in Sudan, its impact actually on South Sudan in terms of influx of refugees and returnees as well. So tell us, what was the outcome of the meeting? If you can mention for some of the resolutions on the outcome in general.
Yes, the visit of our foreign minister, I think it was also a sign how strong the relations are between South Sudan and Germany. And what our foreign minister focused on. She really passed, as you have mentioned, the implementation of the peace agreement. She emphasized on the swift implementation of the peace agreement, and that it has to be done in a way of consensus, and that consensus has to be found where consensus was still lacking. And another message which she highlighted in her talks was the importance of increased transparency on the revenues of the natural resources. And as always on such visits, she instructed us as German embassy to follow up on these questions. So allow me an observation also on the aspect of transparency of revenues. And my impression is that stronger and stronger consensus is building amongst politicians here in South Sudan that this is really an important issue. And I would like to highlight two concrete steps how progress could be achieved in the sector. The first one is to establish a single treasury account. And the second one is that South Sudan joins the Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, which is called EITI. And this initiative, already 50 countries have joined, many from Africa, from the region also. This initiative provides standards for the transparency of revenue, but it does more. And let us look for one moment at the debate which is taking place here in Parliament and elsewhere. And what we, I think, all observe is if an international oil company leaves, then it can be the starting point for a debate on very important question and on an intensified debate. And we see at the moment that the questions of environmental impact of oil companies, what obligation is there for an oil company to assure that protection on the environmental impact of oil production, to have standards there. These questions are being debated at the moment here in Parliament among politicians. Also the question of the impact of oil production on the local population. This is also a question which is being debated here in South Sudan. And the initiative EITI, it provides expertise, it provides answers and lessons learned for questions like these. And it's also, by the way, something which is in the peace agreement. So South Sudan already 2018 took the commitment to join this initiative. Just coming here, I read an important article where Edmond Yakani pleaded to concentrate now on low-hanging fruits from the peace agreement. And I am convinced that joining the EITI, building on this idea of Edmond Yakani, is a low-hanging fruit, and it would really be in the interest of South Sudan to implement it now.
Right. And since you mentioned the 2018 revitalized peace agreement, recently the transitional period has been extended once again for 24 months by parties to the unity government. And of course, that means elections have to be held in 2026. So what's your view, or the view of the German government, on this extension in general?
Well, we have seen in surveys that really the population of South Sudan, many want to vote for the first time, we have to say, since independence. So we share the disappointment of those who really wanted to vote, and we share the disappointment that elections have to be postponed now due to the lack of preparation. Our perspective, when we now look at the 2-year extension, it is not only 2 years, we have 4 months and more left of the former transitional period. So we have 28 months now to work on the implementation of the peace agreement. It is that something fundamentally has to change. And in the RJMEC meeting where the votes were taken to extend, there was someone from the South Sudanese side who did a calculation if the implementation is continued with the same speed as up to now, that it would take, guess how long? 50 years and more to implement all the provisions. Yes, exactly. So 50 years, and I think this clearly shows something has to fundamentally change in the period which is coming now, the 28 month. And from the German perspective, it comes to mainly 2 points. The first and most important one is, of course, the political will, the question of political will. The second one has also been raised by high-ranking South Sudanese politicians. It's a question of funding for the process and how South Sudan can provide the funding. I have heard ideas of more austerity being advocated, but here I really would like to come full circle and come back to the message of the German foreign minister during her visit, and that is the message of transparency, increased transparency. And I am convinced that what we discussed earlier, increased measures of transparency could also help here to have more South Sudanese funds available for the implementation of the peace agreement.
All right. Now, what's your last message before we can wind up our discussion, Ambassador?
The last message is, allow me to say that we really look forward today to celebrate with our partners and friends here in South Sudan the Day of German Unity. And I personally am grateful to be able to spend this special day in Juba. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Christian Sedat, for joining us, the German ambassador to South Sudan. Thank you for your time.